Let's get more political and public reaction on Trump's latest executive order. We have Kate Fisher in Washington, D.C. But first, let's cross to Andalusia. Soloff, who's in the border town of Tijuana in Mexico. Good to see you. So we heard there a clip from the president condemning the war. What else did he have to say?
He talked about how important the relationship is between the United States and Mexico, and that building this wall will not help the relationship, and especially he talked about economic interest and said that this is actually the first time, besides in a tweet, that he has publicly said that he will not help pay for the wall, because when Trump came to Mexico last year and met with him, he did not actually come out and say it in the press conference. He tweeted it after. So today he once again did come out and say it. But I think it's important to say here in Tijuana, which is right across from San Diego, there are tens of thousands of people that cross daily, and that both the U.S. and Mexican sides of the border are economically intertwined. There are people that go to school on both sides of the border. There are people that work on both sides of the border. There are tens of thousands of people that cross this border every day, and this is where the people that live on this border are saying that they don't want this border sealed, that it is vital for the economic interest of both countries for people and goods to be able to flow across this border.
Yeah, well, this is what I wanted to ask you. How worried are people in Mexico generally by this announcement? Because we have been hearing about this war for a long time, but it does finally appear that it could become a reality pretty soon. I mean, what are their main concerns other than, you know, the economic relationship?
Sure. Well, I think it's important to say that it already is a reality for 650 miles of the border, that there already is a wall. So it's more that the wall will be built in new areas and it'll be doubly enforced. I think people feel very uncertain, especially these people I just mentioned, that they go back and forth every day. They don't know if they'll still be allowed to go back and forth. And also, I think it's important to note that actually Mexican migration has gone down over the past few years, and the main migration that crosses across this border now are people from Central America that are fleeing violence, and recently Haitian migrants. There are currently 5,000 Haitian migrants awaiting in Baja California, which is the state where Tijuana is, hoping to get into the U.S. with humanitarian visas. And now these Haitian migrants are very worried, as well as Cuban migrants who came when there was an open policy for them. And so now there's populations from all these different countries in Central America, in the Caribbean, and even Africa and Nepal and India, and now they're on this border, also very worried. I think it's less the Mexicans perhaps that are worried and a little more offended and scared that the border will be closed down and they won't be able to go to school or to work on the other side. But as far as the populations that are trying to move to, get to the United States and apply for asylum and refugee status, they are very fearful that now this wall will prevent them from coming in, as well as many of the other executive actions that Trump took today. That's not just about the wall. It's about making it much more difficult for people to apply for refugee status in the United States.
Okay, Andalusia, good to speak to you. Our reporter there in the city of Tijuana. Let's get reaction from Kate Fisher, who is in Washington, D.C. for us. Kate, we've heard there from the Mexican president saying he is refusing to pay for this wall. I mean, how many people really believe that Trump can pull off this deal and get Mexico to pay for it?
Well, I do think there is a lot of skepticism here about that. I mean, there are huge figures. Trump himself said it's going to cost $8 billion. Many people think it's going to be a lot more than that. And there is skepticism about how he's going to raise these funds. The Mexican president can't make it more clear. Even my schoolgirl Spanish could tell he really is not going to pay for this. Donald Trump did an interview on the television yesterday in America saying that, yes, he would have to be the U.S. taxpayer that started off paying for this wall. He would direct federal funds towards it, but then the Mexicans would pay the U.S. back. How, he was asked? Well, his response was really pretty vague. He said there will be a payment. It will be in a form, perhaps a complicated form. And that was about all the explanation we got. Does he mean he'll raise tariffs? Well, if he did that, then the Mexicans may raise tariffs back. So it's a very confusing understanding of how this is going to be paid for. And it does seem to be something of a stalemate, with both presidents refusing to foot the bill.
You mentioned his speech yesterday at the Department of Homeland Security. It was a pretty forceful speech, talking about how the wall was coming, the borders were coming back to the United States. How has that speech gone down?
It was forceful, and it was made at the Department of Homeland Security in front of the relatives of some people who have been killed by illegal immigrants in the United States, which made it even more effective, perhaps, for the people sitting there listening to it. He said, "We are going to restore the rule of law in the United States." Well, I'm sure the people in that room who had been directly affected by violence from illegal immigrants were very heartened to hear that, but there are a huge number of people in the United States, 11 million illegal immigrants for a start, who are terribly worried and concerned about this. Advocacy groups saying that this will jeopardize the rights and freedoms of literally millions of people. It also soils America's reputation as a country that has always been welcoming to immigrants. And so there is a huge outcry in many parts of the country about these proposals.
Kate, good to speak to you. Kate Fisher there for us in Washington, D.C.